name is Dan Moore, and this is my report. I read the book The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness, written by an ACLU lawyer and professor, Michelle Alexander. Alexander explains how the criminal justice system in America functions as the latest tool in the American history of racial inequality. The book questions the prison industrial complex and aims for social justice reform. I choose this book because I am very interested in black history, slavery, so the new Jim Crow caught my eye. I had heard about the book but had never read it, so this book did meet my expectations and then some. The most important thing I took away from the book was just the suitable ways that blacks and other minorities have been controlled over the years. In the Jim Crow era, there were laws that mandated the segregation of public school, public places, the public transportation, and the segregation of restrooms, restaurants, and even your common everyday drinking fountain for whites and blacks. Now, since it is not politically correct to use race as justification for discrimination, Alexander explains that we use the criminal justice system to control minorities today. She goes on to explain that racism has evolved. What started as slavery went to Jim Crow, and now is later developed into a system to control people through incarceration. She believes that incarceration is used to provide a social caste and racial caste system that is used to create and continue the racial hierarchy in the United States today. Alexandria points to the changes in the diminished Fourth Amendment and the fact that the African Americans are typically in the poorest neighborhoods and are subject to tactics and practices that would result in public outrage if committed in the middle class white neighborhoods. Because these tactics and the war on drugs, we see traffic stops that have led to search and then arrest and conviction. Alexander gives stats that show that more than 350,000 people were arrested and jailed by NYPD between 1997 and 2006 for simple possession of small amounts of marijuana, with blacks 5 times more likely to be arrested than whites. Recently in the news, we have seen prime examples of how the police, the government, and the society handles what is seen as a black versus white issue. With the recent overdose and addiction of opioids, lawmakers are treating opioids as a public health crisis while they approach the crack epidemic with arrest and convictions. To me, the difference in approach has racial undertones since the crack epidemic attacked the black community while the opioid crisis largely affects whites, which continue the racial caste system that Alexander writes about. This is a great example where we can see the differences, but we just continue to accept the bias. Perhaps those that make policy decisions should read this book to make them more aware of the unfair decisions that they are making. She goes on to explain that once you are arrested and in the system, you lose everything. She states that people released from prison face a lifetime of discrimination and exclusion. Convicted criminals lose their ability to vote, hold jobs, and benefit from many government programs. It stops these people from getting a leg up and becoming a functioning member of society. It is like their debt is never paid. Alexander suggests ways to change the system, but feels that the private prison system and those making a profit off the prisoners, it might be too big of a fight. She calls on-job training, career opportunities for prison workers. Stop asking on-job applications if you have a felony conviction so those that can come out of prison can function in society. Alexander makes great points that are backed with statistics. Alexander makes great points for change, such as changing the desired for colorblindness, which becomes the racial indifference. With discussions about race, even though it makes most of us uncomfortable, or most people, I feel that we need to do better for minorities, but this social caste system has been in effect since the 1600s. So we have a fight on our hands, but reading this book could really do a lot to help our problem. I hope you give it a chance and read it. It was a really good read. Thank you.